Definitivamente.
Queremos informarles a los delegados que no están hospedados en estos hoteles de aquí, que por favor pasen luego por la mesa de recepción para que se le va a entregar el ticket de comida por parte del personal de protocolo. Los delegados que no están hospedados en los hoteles cercanos, que pasen por la mesa de recepción para recibir su ticket de comida. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, espero les haya favorecido el refrigerio. Vamos a continuar con nuestras presentaciones, por lo que les solicito a los que siguen fuera todavía que se vayan sentando. Vamos a trabajar lo más rápido que podamos, vamos a ganar tiempo. En ese sentido, vamos a iniciar con una presentación que tiene pendiente para hacernos el señor Silvestre Cadet, representante de BDT de Barbados. Por favor, con su atención, adelante, Silvestre.
Once again, I thank you for the opportunity. I will be very, very quick, considering time constraints. One of the key elements to the ITU Interactive Terrestrial Map is the fact that at this point in time, with the advent of submarine cable and submarine cable landings in most countries, that it creates a fantastic opportunity for broadband connectivity and in achieving significant progress. And in that regard, creating the online interactive terrestrial maps will serve as, in fact, a powerful tool for all stakeholders, whether it be the telcos, industry players, whether it be governments, as far as helping them to understand and facilitating the whole process, developmental process of broadband connectivity worldwide. And of course, one of the key elements here would be the partnership and the collaboration of the ITU with regional organizations, as well as related stakeholders in that particular field. Now, what is the project scope? Basically, it involves research plus processing plus the actual creation of the maps for the different regions. And of course, you can access it in 2D and 3D. The key product advantages is that it helps in demonstrating ICT connectivity and shows the current status around the globe, and that is very critical in effective planning. It provides accessibility and look at multi-criteria analysis. It also empowers network planners, policymakers, and regulators from the various countries, especially developing countries. Another of the key product advantages is that it provides industry with powerful tool to access market opportunities, which really translates to effective management, making investment decisions, promoting broadband and achieving universal connectivity. And of course, a key element would be offering an informed insight into the kind of data that is required. So here is basically a snapshot of the key elements, the purpose, the research aspect, the validation aspect, and the output. These are some of the key elements. I would not take too much time on this because you can have it later on. You can access the map utilizing this URL right down here, and typically it would bring you to a 2D map presentation on the ITU website. Yes? Now here is a rendering of some of the key elements, and that of course includes the various regions. It shows you the operators, it shows you the links, and it shows you the nodes. Once you enter on the map, on the site, sorry, you can then look at the opportunity for creating a 3D representation of the map. So here, you can go to this particular link, and it will give you a 3D rendering. Of course, that would be basically the 3D rendering, so I would not. Here are some of the key indicators that would be highlighted. Some of the key indicators, I'll just take some time on it. These indicators, they are produced by the countries and also at regional level. And some of them, what they do, they track the changes in terrestrial transmission networks. Here are the list of indicators, fiber optic length, the node locations, equipment type, and so on. Operational status, and of course, a key element would be the percentage population. For indeed, whenever we talk about ICTs and connectivity and broadband, we must bring it down to the common denominator, which is really a people-centric approach to handling these issues. It all boils down to people. Then, data connection or primary sources, operators and service providers. Then the secondary sources, on average, around 25 to 40% of the data is readily available in the public domain. As I mentioned, operators' website, annual reports, companies, and so on. And of course, presentations made at ITU workshops and events. Some of these bits and pieces of information is restricted to TIE's users. So for individuals who may want a more detailed rendering of the map, then you would necessarily need to have a TIE's account. And for industry players and also other individuals who may be, from a government perspective, of course, you can source the line ministry, and they would in turn determine who would have the opportunity to get a TIE's account and can then readily access. Very quickly, the key element here is partnership. It is beneficial for us to seek partnership with organizations having already gathered information or who have done research in relation to these networks in terms of producing the transmission networks, network maps, and also in terms of technical reasons. Of course, we would seek permission to display organizations' network maps, of course, on their permission through the ITU World Transmission Map. Then a key element of all this would be feedback. Feedback is very important. Having uploaded all the information, then the kind of feedback, whether we missed out something, whether there's additional information that needs to be updated, what are the various implications, etc. These are some of the things that we would want to look at. Yes? And then the whole issue of map validation. So the operators and the service providers would assist us in the validation process. So operators are the only organizations which are capable of validating maps of their own network infrastructure. So if information was given by one particular network in terms of validating and ensuring that this network, this rendering is in fact correct, they are the only ones we can go to in that regard. They are the only ones who could. In the case of non-response from a network operator, then what we do is that we look to the public domain for information that is already readily available in the public domain. What is the validation process? Very quickly, the ITU regional office is asked to notify the operators that the map of their network has been added to the regional map, and then we invite them to log in to TIES to check and validate the network, and of course to send a confirmation that they have no objection and so on. So essentially this slide gives basically an impression of how you can access utilizing the TIES network. Yes? Yes. Again, this here gives another impression. This here would be on the site, so you would have access to it. I know I have short time. How many more minutes? 2 more minutes. Yeah. So essentially, this here gives you the link to open the validation framework. In opening the validation framework, these are some of the key elements that you would look for. Name of the operator or the country, you navigate to the country, and then you navigate to the validation status. Yeah? Then here, if you, after accessing, then you can click to the image of the source material, so you can find out the key source materials that was utilized. And of course, you could hover your mouse over a link, and the technical details of that link will appear in the toolbar on the left. So it would appear here on the left. Basically what that does, it's allow you to have a very interactive map, one that is more or less user-friendly, and one that can allow the information to jump out at you so that you don't have to go searching. So you could, for example, just browse your mouse here and you see the information popping up over the map, as it were. So looking at this, here, of course, to validate the information shown in the map, of course, there is commentary areas that you can leave a reply. This is very important because this here, validation, the validation levels, shows you what is the status. You have red, amber, green, or public. I would not take too much time on this, but just suffice it to say once you see green, then of course you know that everything has been processed and that the validation process is complete. Red, of course, indicates that you need quite a bit of additional information in that regard. Here again, the whole issue of validation. So I'll go on very quickly. And yes, the 2 minutes is up. Okay. So suffice it to say that in essence and in a nutshell, these are some of the key elements that you'd want to look at, especially the aspect of validation, especially the aspect of data, the actual data entry, etc. For regulatory bodies, then of course, the key is to ensure that you interface with the operators and service providers and create that link with ITU. I have said a mouthful. There is a lot more. You can find it in the presentation, the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Gracias. Gracias y excúsanos, excuse us, we are running against the time. De todas maneras, para continuar con nuestro panel, me voy a permitir robarme un minuto de protocolo para hacer la presentación de los panelistas distinguidos que están acá con nosotros, para que por favor digan su nombre y se presenten, empezando por Salvador, si es tan amable.
Salvador Ricour, vengo representando también a Prodetel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ayana Samuels, consultant with the Caribbean Association of National Telecommunications Organizations.
Muy buenas tardes. Jorge Torres, de la Comisión Técnica Regional de Telecomunicaciones de Centroamérica. Un gusto estar acá con ustedes y compartir unos minutos acá.
Gracias, Jorge.
Buenas tardes, Santiago Reyes Borda, del Departamento de Industria de Canadá. Soy responsable del Directorio de Desarrollo de Políticas de Telecomunicaciones Internacionales.
Yeah, good morning, I'm Ken Sylvester. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Knowledge and Learning Network.
Gracias.
Good morning, I am Junior McIntyre, Project Coordinator for the Caribbean Telecommunications Union.
Gracias, caballeros, y para los que no me conocen, Miguel Fadul, estoy como representante de la Sociedad de Profesionales de las Telecomunicaciones de República Dominicana. Continuando seguidito con nuestras presentaciones, le voy a pedir a Junior McIntyre, por favor, si nos hace su presentación.
Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you. I would like to extend greetings first from the CTU, and I would also like to thank the ITU as well as Indotel for inviting us and allowing us to be part of this very important forum. I am going to be presenting on a number of things, two particular issues. One would be Caribbean IXP proliferation, which the CTU is very much involved in, as well as the Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. You may have heard a bit about it this morning, and I'm going to be speaking about it from the context of CTU and our role and inside of that particular initiative. A brief history of the CTU, I'll just give you a brief history. In 1989, the CTU was established by CARICOM to be an intergovernmental telecommunications policy instrument for the Caribbean. In 2003, a new strategy was defined and a new strategic direction was initiated to address issues of ICT. And in 2004, the membership of the CTU was expanded to include private sector organizations. In 2005, a request by the CARICOM Secretariat emerged to address internet governance issues. And of course, in 2008, we produced the first Caribbean internet governance policy framework. The mission of the CTU is to create an environment in partnership with members to optimize returns from ICT resources for the benefit of our stakeholders. And this is just a graphical view of the scope and the responsibility of CTU. And of course, you would see the member countries that I referred to. All right, so we have 21 member countries. And we also have, as part of the membership of the CTU, managers of internet number resources and what we call the regulators, the National Regulation and Telecommunication Authorities in the respective countries. And we include other organizations such as CaribNOG, CANTO, ICANN, LATNIC, ISOC, and ARIN as well. The Caribbean Internet Governance Policy Framework identifies physical infrastructure as a strategic priority and the development of internet exchange points as fundamental elements for enabling connectivity in the Caribbean information society. And so if you refer to the previous slide, you will realize that we, the CTU, that is, have done a significant amount of work in the whole issue of sharing the value of IXPs with our members, encouraging them, and actually partnering with regional organizations such as Packet Clearinghouse. And I think that was a very, a critical success factor for us really achieving a lot of the IXP rollouts and implementations, because we really recognize the need to partner with agencies, international and regionally, that have the capacity and would be able to support us in our endeavors. So partnership, collaboration, sharing is very important to us, and they are part of the hallmarks of the CTU. This slide gives you an approach from 2007 to present, and it speaks to a number, if you can see these slides, the print is a bit small, but we have been doing a lot of what we call educational and awareness campaigns throughout the region since 2007. Some of you may have been part of it, and a number of the organizations like LATNIC, ARIN, and a number of others have been part of the Caribbean ICT roadshows. We go into communities in respective countries, and we actually raise awareness, the issues, we bring the issues to the fore, we have discussions, we take feedback from the communities, and we use a lot of the information that's derived from the feedback to actually inform policy and shape the agenda on the way forward. We also have a lot of national initiatives as well. We partner with governments, we partner a lot with the regulators, and we collaborate with them for a number of initiatives on the ground. And we have, of course, stakeholder activities where we involve a lot of our activities. We always tend to partner with the service providers as well. And so we bring everybody into in the context of discussion because we recognize that if we operate in silos and if we operate independently, certainly the synergies will not be realized and the opportunities will not be gained. So we try as much as possible to have collaboration as part of a core value that we operate by. And of course, IXP Symposia, we singled out the IXPs in a significant way because it became a priority. It became a priority for us, and so we have had a number of IXP Symposia throughout the region, and we think that contributed largely towards the development of IXPs. We have, of course, collaboration and capacity building. I spoke about that, the issue of partnering with Packet Clearinghouse. We also partner with Caribbean Operators Network Group, which we refer to as CaribNOG. We have, at least twice a year, we have workshops. We had one a month ago in Curaçao. We have them at least twice a year where we have these workshops. We bring all the technical experts together. We will bring the heads of the managers who are responsible for supporting ICT. We also include the service providers, the engineers, the regulators, people who have, and it's very hands-on workshops. We actually do a lot of training and capacity building inside of that. So it's a unique arrangement where you find service providers working together, the technical people, that would be the engineers, working together with engineers that are placed in the government ministries and collaborating and working together and resolving issues. Because at the end of the day, when we, at the policy level, have discussions and make decisions, sometimes the problems, the nuts and bolts and the issues have to be resolved by the technical people. And if the technical people speak to each other and they have that relationship, then clearly there is that's a step in the right direction. Also important is the whole issue of CSIR, that is Computer Security and Emergency Response Teams. Very important for the engineers to have discussions, because if there is a threat of any nature that exists, probably in most cases, the threat originates outside of the domain or outside of the region, and people have to speak to each other. And so those relationships have been forged and established, and it augurs well for dealing with a number of complex issues as we move forward. Okay, as well as, of course, policy framework. We work with the regulators and governments, and we have specific workshops to address issues we play a role that would more or less be facilitator in a large sense. We bring all the stakeholders together, and we have discussions, and we review documents, we review white papers, we come up with policies, we advise, and we inform. And at the end of the day, we empower our stakeholders to become better at what they do. And of course, strengthening infrastructure. And we have specific projects that we involved in. CASIP is one of those projects. The IXPs, actually, we work with Packet Clearinghouse, and they are directly involved in implementation. So we don't just advise, but we actually provide even equipment through Packet Clearinghouse, as well as the technical expertise to support the implementation. Okay, so this is a map of the region of sorts, and so just to give you a sense of what we have done so far in terms of IXPs. All right, so we have active IXPs in Curacao, Haiti, St. Martin, Grenada, British Virgin Islands, Dominica, St. Lucia, and Trinidad and Tobago. In progress, we have St. Kitts and Nevis, well, of course, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is one of the CASIP participating countries. They're soon to implement February 2015, and we have Barbados right behind. As well as, of course, there's Jamaica as well. They're thinking about it, and soon to really make a commitment. And of course, maybe one day everybody else will see the benefit of it. But we are pursuing relentlessly the whole issue of IXP proliferation, and we're working with the member states, and particularly with the heads of the ICT ministries, to ensure that that is a priority on the agenda, national agenda. Beyond IXPs, I'm going to talk a bit about CASIP. Although IXPs are a pivotal and critical part of the implementation, just to give you a brief sense of CASIP from this is the phase 1 of CASIP. I know my colleague before from the bank spoke about phase 2 of CASIP specific to the Dominican Republic. But we in the Caribbean are embarking on phase 1. Okay, it's again funded by the World Bank, and CTU has been given the mandate to coordinate at a regional level the activities. The objective of the program is to foster the development of a regional sustainable ICT framework which will bridge the remaining gaps in the broadband communication infrastructure. So the project focuses mainly on dealing with the whole issue of infrastructure gaps, albeit on the softer side in terms of capacity building as well as the infrastructure side. There are two main strategic outcomes, which would be to increase access to the regional broadband backbones, to support facilities and networks that provide connectivity to international and regional markets. The second component of the project is the whole issue of the advancement of ICT-led innovation and the development of an ICT-enabled service industry in the Caribbean. So we see the two are not being mutually exclusive, because you cannot talk about infrastructure development without leaving out the human capacity, human development, the HR side of it. Okay, so they both work hand in hand. So we advise that that approach is an excellent approach under the CASIP umbrella. We have 3 participating countries. Under CASIP, we have Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and they are the beneficiaries. We have 3 regional institutions responsible for coordinating at the regional level with specific responsibility. We have, of course, CTU will be focusing on support for regional connectivity infrastructure as well as ICT-led innovation. We have ECTEL, that is the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority. They'll be focusing primarily on the infrastructure side, the regulatory side, the enabling side. And we have CKLN. They'll be focusing on both the regional connectivity as well as the ICT-led innovation aspect of the program. Just to briefly give you a sense of, at a high level, a sense of the major gaps that we intend to address through the project. The first gap was noted as broadband, or the demand for broadband exceeds the supply, and we know the whole issue of demand and supply. And focusing on the 2 countries, Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that spurred the whole issue of the submarine fiber optic cable implementation. And the benefits we see from that is the whole issue of an integrated regional network and affordable connectivity. this analysis, this slide just gives you a sense of the reason why we validate that approach. All right, that slide gives you a sense of the gaps between Grenada and Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Okay, great. All right, so this slide just tells you, I'll just kind of go through it with you. The current microwave system is insufficient, primarily from the spectrum capacity side of it to support the population growth, the uptake in, especially on the household side of it, in terms of telecoms and ICT. So of course, it makes good sense to move away from that infrastructure model to fiber cable, okay? And of course, it's similar between St. Vincent and the Grenadine Islands as well. Same scenario. By 2019, we know that the capacity in terms of spectrum allocation will have reached its maximum. We're not even talking about the redesign and the remodeling of the existing infrastructure. This is just spectrum alone, okay? So it's a no-brainer, so to speak, to move forward. Of course, the other side will be the whole issue of inadequate government infrastructure. And so another important part of CARSIP is the whole issue of developing government networks, private government networks, all right? And of course, to offer pricing scalability. That's a big issue in the region where governments pay exorbitant prices to service providers just to operate a government network, all right? So we actually hemorrhaging inside of there. The whole issue of scalability, a lot of the physical networks are unable to grow beyond the existing capacity. And of course, no need to mention security on our government networks and the need for it, and the growing demand for e-government, education, and public safety. And all those services sit on top a robust government network. So, of course, we spoke about IXP, the benefits of it. We heard a lot about that. Okay, so I think that's the end of my time and the end of my presentation. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Junior. Very good presentation. Vamos a continuar con la siguiente interesante presentación. Le vamos a pedir al señor Ken Sylvester, CEO del Caribbean Knowledge and Learning Network, que nos dé su presentación. Recuerden que vayan anotando sus preguntas para la sección de preguntas que tendremos al final de las presentaciones y que estamos corriendo contra el tiempo. Adelante.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dominican Republic, for inviting CKLN to present to you. This morning, I want to share with you our experience in using broadband in our geographical space to build a research and education network for the region. But who is us? We, CKLN, we are an intergovernmental agency of CARICOM. And we came into being to bridge the digital divide that existed between the region and the rest of the world as it relates to research and education and knowledge sharing. You will recall one of the WISIS goals was to have a global mesh where knowledge and education was freely exchanged and collaborative research was the order of the day. Prior to 2012, if this can actually, prior to 2012, as you can see, all of the regions of the world were connected together using broadband, sharing knowledge, exchanging information, doing research and collaborating. So the United States was connected to Europe. GEONT, which is the European network, is the hub. And GEONT connects all of the universities and countries in Europe. Latin America, we had Red Clara, and Red Clara connected from here, I can't remember exactly where that was, into Europe. And again, Red Clara has a network connecting all of the countries in Latin America. And Africa also has its own network called UbuntuNet, and UbuntuNet again connects back to Europe, and as you can see, Asia, the Middle East. So prior to 2012, there was a big digital divide in the Caribbean. separating us from the fundamentals of knowledge sharing, research, and education. And CaribNet came into being to bridge that gap. And this was funded by a 10 million euro grant from the European Union. And so we embarked building this network starting in 2009. So as you can see, the blue ring, that is the backbone of the network. And we have a POP here in Domrep. We have a POP at the Nap of the Americas. We have a POP in Trinidad and one in Jamaica. And that is the core of the network. We connect to Europe from Dominican Republic, which is GIANT. Remember I told you all networks meet in Europe, because the objective is that any institution or university or hospitals in Dominican Republic should be able to share knowledge, collaborate, and work with any college universities anywhere in the world, because all the networks coalesce and join. So what we actually have is a global mesh of using broadband to connect all learning, knowledge, sharing, research institutions. So we are connected to Europe through here. Of course, to the Americas, we connected through Miami, and we are connected to Latin America through Panama, to the Red Clara network, giving us full interconnection using broadband to bridge that divide. Dominican Republic is of particular importance because it is one of the actual nodes, and we will share with you shortly how they're doing with the various connections. So at the moment, we have over 14 countries connected. So the network in most part has been completed. And so we have 14 countries connected, and we have over 147 institutions connected to the network. It's interesting because we are talking about broadband and its use, and you will see some of the issues we actually face. Because in this space, we were only able to have one provider. We only had one provider could have responded to meet our requirements with links in this space to allow us to build that network. So we were working with a monopoly called Cable and Wireless. In the southern part of the Caribbean, going into South America, we have Suriname, and we had to work with the Suriname telco, which again is a monopoly. In Belize, here in Central America, we had to work again with a monopoly in order to build the network. And I'm stressing the fact that they are monopolies because you will see the impact on us trying to build these networks in a space where we don't have competition. But before I look at that, this network, if you now look at the Caribbean, you see we are now connected, this blue line here. So CaribNet, which I just showed you, is here, which we built, and we are now connected from Domrep to GIANT. So from a networking point of view, we've actually fulfilled that mandate of bridging the digital divide between the Caribbean and the rest of the world as it relates to education, research, knowledge sharing, and telehealth issues. Of course, to get functionality out of it, functionality out of it, we've actually built the regional network. But without national networks, the regional network has no value. And so the actual architecture that makes everything works into a seamless mesh. You have institutions connecting to NRENs, NRENs connecting to CaribNet, which is this network here, and then connect to the international networks, which is GIONT. In the case of Dominican Republic, you will have institutions here connecting to the Dominican NREN, which is called RADAI. And then RADAI connects to CaribNet and then to the international. So that is the architecture that actually makes it work. We weren't looking very good in the Caribbean because there are over 150 NRENs around the world. And at the time, there was only one NREN in the region. That was Dominican Republic. Now, you had an NREN as it relates to the organization. You've actually set it up with a body, but you had no infrastructure and you had no networking. And what CaribNet brought the infrastructure to actually build that physical network. So you see, we were in a pretty bad state of 2012, lagging behind very much the rest of the world. So as we stand now, we have CaribNet, which I've shared with you, RADAI, which I've shared with you, and we have been busy building those, we call them emerging NRENs, so that they can now connect to the regional network. So Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, the Bahamas, the OECS, Belize, Suriname, and Haiti. And this is a prerequisite, because without the NRENs, with the governance structure, to connect the universities and colleges at the national level, then the regional network has no value. So we have been very busy working with them. So what do we have? So in each country, we delivered, and this is similar to DOMREP. This is Trinidad. So we delivered a massive POP here, but we also deliver what we call an access node. And this access node is the core that allows countries to build the national networks. So in Trinidad case, this is the access node based in Trinidad. We happen to have the backbone node which builds the backbone. And they've now started, and they have 6 institutions, University of the West Indies, UTT, COSTAT, and they're all connected by 100 megabits links. Bear in mind that it's very important because one of the constraints, and you will see this shortly, is the cost of this last mile, to connect to the access node, forming that national network. That is Jamaica. Jamaica had that E here. Jamaica had a national network called an e-learning network. So when we built and we gave them this actual node, they were able to connect these universities, and over 120 colleges and schools were connected here. Just one more to show you. Dominican Republic, at the moment, RADAI has been working very hard, but the latest information we have is that there's only one university in Dominican Republic connected to the network. So although you have the infrastructure, although you are a backbone for the network, and by the way, the connectivity so far, we haven't charged for it, so it isn't a cost issue. Although that is the case, sadly, Dominican Republic only has one institution connected to that network. So just very quickly, these are the rest, so I won't bore you with them. I just wanted to give you a sense. So where are we? Just 2 more slides. We have some risks, and we have 2 minutes? Okay, that's fine. We have some risks, and we have some challenges. The funding was given to us 10 million euros by the European Union. And the program was that the money they will fund us for 3.75 years. And after that, we will build a sustainability plan, which, by the way, we have developed, to achieve sustainability, self-financing of the network beyond that 3.75 years. Unfortunately, because of the cost of broadband in the Caribbean. We've only been able to fund 2 years. And this has been a major concern and a major stress for us, because come February 2015, the funding we've had finishes. And the EU has told us that whilst they may consider us for some further funding in 2016, but we have a gap between February 2015 and 2016. So that's the major issue, and we are not clear yet. And I've got a thing which says, can the ITU help? I just wanted to show you the barriers. I obviously missed it somewhere. Good. Now, these are some major issues which I think everyone in this audience should understand. Why we in the Caribbean are special, and why broadband issues are so precious to us and present some difficulty for us. All the other research and education networks I showed you around the world, they use terrestrial fiber. Because we're small island states, we have to connect ourselves using wet fiber. And running wet fiber is much more expensive than using terrestrial fiber. So our cost immediately has gone up significantly. The second issue, we have no competition. So we have monopolies in most cases. And we have to go to that monopoly and say, we want to connect, what is the cost of your broadband? And they will give us a price. We have worked out that the cost of broadband in our space for research and education networks in the Caribbean, including DOMRED, is 10 times as expensive as those in Europe, Latin America, and the USA. Most research and education networks, for longevity and sustainability, would wish to move to IRUs, because IRUs, you make the investment up front, but the actual payment over the period is very short. With wet fiber, it is difficult to have IRUs, as you have in the case with terrestrial fiber. And so the lack of ownership, and again, the lack of competition. At the last mile level for the creation of national networks, in most of the countries, there are one or only two providers providing last mile. And that too, they give you prices that they believe is sensible. Unfortunately, the situation with monopolies in our region has gotten worse about a month ago. Because cable and wireless, we had two providers. We had cable and wireless, and we had Columbus. And we thought we were moving into an area of competition that will force the price of broadband down. Cable and wireless acquired Columbus 1 month ago, and that is creating major turbulence and major turmoil within the Caribbean. So whatever sustainability model we have, and one of the things we need to do, because, you know, we built that network, and there is a risk that that network will actually stop. Because we will not be able to sustain it because of the actual cost, right? Now, in order to, we need to do something in the Caribbean, and we need to do it urgently. And I put it in red. We need a collaborative intervention by the leadership of the region with the telco operators to get sensible prices for broadband so we can continue to support this network. And I believe the ITU should play a leading role. You guys should take the initiative now, and by the way, you can't do it next year, because come February, we don't know where we're going to get the funding from to actually continue with this network. And we will only move forward with a strategy if we can get prices that are sensible, that will allow the institutions to participate at fees that are affordable, or else we just can't do it. That is the end of my presentation. There's only one other barrier for success. For whatever reason, our region, we do not have a culture of collaboration. The network is meant for people to work together. The network, you have 13 large universities in Damrep, as I understand it. They now have an infrastructure, and one would have thought that they would see the value proposition, rush towards us. We have the head of the Dominican NREN here, so if you need to ask questions as to what's happening, Jose is in the back, and he'll be able to actually share with you why, for example, your country, you've not embraced the network as institutions and getting the benefit of it. So I thank you very much. I plead you, I beg of you, we need support, and anything you can do in that regard. And this is my last slide coming up, which I think I want you to imprint this on your mind when you leave here. The EU has just done a summative evaluation of the work we've done for that 10 million euros. And the summative evaluation said we did a wonderful job. We executed the program in accordance with the financing agreement, and the financing agreement was between the EU and CARI Forum, of which you are a member. And they said, wonderfully well done. But they said two things need to happen. One, the leadership of the region must take ownership of this infrastructure. And the leadership of the region has to come up with a plan and a strategy that would allow this network to coexist, but not with the prices that the EU is not prepared to pay, the type of broadband prices for a network which is a public good, because that's what these networks are. And so they're saying without a major movement in that, they do not want to have much more conversation. So colleagues, we cannot go back. We've bridged the digital divide, but I'm leaving you here suggesting that there is a risk unless we get together and do something about it. So I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ken. Second applause. Very good. Excellent. Continuamos con nuestra presentación y le pedimos al señor Santiago Reyes Borda, asesor senior de Industry de Canadá, para que nos cuente un poco del rol de la nueva tecnología para la experiencia de conectividad en Centroamérica.
Buenas tardes, muchas gracias. Las presentaciones están en inglés, pero voy a hacer uso de mi idioma materno para referirme a la presentación. Voy a tratar dos temas. Rápidamente, hacer una presentación sobre la estrategia digital económica de Canadá y una parte breve de esta intervención para dar una opinión de carácter personal sobre todo este tema de la innovación, del cierre de la brecha digital y sobre todo este escenario y todos estos ejercicios que tenemos de foros y reuniones, porque muchas veces nos preguntan, bueno, ¿y qué ha pasado con todo lo que han venido discutiendo tratando de cerrar la brecha digital desde el 2003? DC 150, este es el Digital Canada 150, y el 150 es porque Canadá cumple 150 años de vida independiente en el 2017. Y entonces, desde hace aproximadamente 3 años, se viene llevando a cabo una consulta general y popular con toda clase de stakeholders, término que está muy de moda, multi-stakeholders, para informar la política digital de Canadá. Y todos estos stakeholders no solamente es el gobierno, es la empresa privada, las pymes, la microempresa, organizaciones de la sociedad civil, etc. Ese es un punto fundamental, porque más que hacer referencia, y ustedes verán unos números que parecen extravagantes por la cantidad de dinero que Canadá está invirtiendo en este proyecto, yo creo que lo más importante no es tanto la cifra, sino el haber tenido una visión, una misión, una estrategia y un mecanismo de consulta con los canadienses para poder llevar a cabo esta estrategia. Son 5 pilares: conectar a los canadienses, protegerlos, proveer oportunidades económicas, hacer del gobierno realmente un gobierno digital y desarrollar todo el contenido canadiense que sea posible. Esto de Connecting Canadians, el EAP es el Economic Action Plan de Canadá, que está colocando una enorme cantidad de dinero en asuntos de infraestructura. La cifra que ven en la segunda bullet son 53 billones de dólares durante un tiempo de 10 años para toda suerte de proyectos de infraestructura. Y obviamente, en el término de infraestructura y en el tema de Internet es muy importante para un país como Canadá, que es el segundo país más grande del mundo, con una población de 37 millones de habitantes, de las cuales el 90% vive a menos de 160 kilómetros de la frontera con Estados Unidos. Y obviamente, si ustedes ven una estrategia que está fundada en principios de equidad, accesibilidad y bajo costo, es una estrategia que tiene que tener en cuenta todos los canadienses independientemente de dónde vivan. Y hay canadienses que viven a 6.000 kilómetros al norte de la ciudad de Toronto, que tienen exactamente el mismo derecho y el gobierno las mismas obligaciones de proveerles el acceso. Pero obviamente no se puede forzar al sector privado a llevar fibra o a las compañías satelitales a proveer conectividad cuando el modelo económico no es precisamente el más apropiado. En este sentido, y pasando a la siguiente, el siguiente pilar es, hay que proteger a los canadienses. ¿Y protegerlos de qué? El Internet, alguien me decía unos años, es la biblioteca más grande del universo, donde una muy buena cantidad de los libros o no sirven para nada o son peligrosos. Y ustedes verán, por ejemplo, acá que el 59% de los canadienses no creen que una compañía les va a decir si sus datos personales han sido robados o hay un problema de seguridad. Y obviamente cuando se habla de todo este desarrollo digital, que el comercio electrónico, que hay que motivar esto, pues si no se tiene una política muy clara para proteger a los ciudadanos, pues obviamente no se va a poder estimular el comercio electrónico de la manera como se tiene previsto. Las oportunidades económicas, esto lo hemos venido escuchando, que vivimos en un mundo en el cual el Internet es la infraestructura del futuro y que obviamente hay una cantidad de beneficios de carácter económico, de carácter comercial y que todo el mundo se tiene que meter al Internet y que tiene que haber una política consistente y coherente. En ese sentido, de las oportunidades digitales pasamos al tema del gobierno digital, porque los gobiernos, además de tener una responsabilidad de ser los catalizadores de este desarrollo, no se puede llegar a una exitosa resolución a menos de que haya lo que en inglés se llama un top-down, bottom-up approach. Esto no es un proyecto del gobierno de Canadá únicamente, es un proyecto de todos los canadienses, independientemente del partido de gobierno que tenga la mayoría en la Cámara de los Comunes. Es un proyecto a nivel nacional, es un proyecto de Estado. Hace unos años alguien me preguntaba, bueno, si ustedes van a conectar las escuelas, ¿ese es un proyecto de educación o un proyecto de tecnología? Ni lo uno ni lo otro, ambos, y es un proyecto a nivel nacional. Por eso es tan importante que el tema de la apropiación de todas estas estrategias no se lo apropie un ministerio en particular o una agencia en particular, porque se convierten en proyectos pet projects de gobiernos de turno y después la realidad no resulta eficiente. Y obviamente el tema del contenido. Canadá, además de ser un país oficialmente bilingüe, 8.7 millones de canadienses son francoparlantes, hay una enorme diversidad cultural. El segundo idioma probablemente ya está próximo a ser el mandarín o el chino. El español está creciendo y por lo tanto el contenido canadiense tiene que reflejar esa diversidad cultural. Pero no se puede forzar el contenido tampoco. Lo que hay que crear son escenarios y ambientes regulatorios y de inversión y sobre todo de estimular a la gente joven para que sean ellos y ellas las que generen el contenido. Entonces, todos estos datos que además suenan enormes, 50 billones de dólares es lo que contribuye las artes y la cultura al Producto Nacional Bruto de Canadá. Sí, es enorme, pero es enorme también porque es el resultado de unas políticas que vienen de largo plazo. Canadá es un país para el cual la comunicación fue fundamental toda su vida. Primero, conectando las costas pacífica y atlántica con el ferrocarril. La comunicación siempre ha sido prioritaria. Lo que ha cambiado es la tecnología. Ahora la comunicación es inalámbrica y el Internet, pero el conectar a todos los ciudadanos en todas partes, todo el tiempo, es una prioridad. Y obviamente, para terminar esta parte de la presentación, los invito a visitar esa página web, que es canada.ca/DC150 y síganos en Twitter, de ese 150. Y con esto realmente termino un poco este tema de Canadá. Yo creo que me quedan como 3 minutos. ¿5? Perfecto. Y es el tema de que en la mañana se hacía referencia a las estadísticas sobre la región Américas y que aparentemente hay una distorsión porque están incluyendo a Canadá y a los Estados Unidos, donde la penetración es mucho más alta. Evidentemente, aunque yo no creo que sea una distorsión de las estadísticas. El hecho es que hay países en la región también, como lo pueden ser y los mencionaron esta mañana, Uruguay, Chile, Costa Rica, países del Caribe como Antigua y Barbuda, Trinidad y Tobago, Barbados, que han hecho una gran labor y han venido desarrollando. Y en parte es desde la visión canadiense porque ha habido una inclusión social en todo el proceso de decisión. Si no hay un bottom-up, top-down, todas estas estrategias pues tienden a quedarse o a empantanarse un poco. Y es que la gente nos está preguntando todos los días, ¿ustedes no fueron los mismos que fueron a la Cumbre Mundial de la Sociedad de la Información hace 11 años a cerrar la brecha digital? Si ustedes recuerdan bien, nos pasamos 2 años y medio antes de la primera cumbre redactando la declaración. Cuando la declaración hubiera podido ser un párrafo muy cortico que hubiera dicho, nosotros, los jefes de Estado y de gobierno del mundo, nos comprometemos a cerrar la brecha digital y para tal efecto añadimos o anexamos el siguiente plan de acción. No, 6 idiomas oficiales de la UIT y 2 años de discusión. Y no lo digo con sarcasmo, sino porque es una realidad cuando tenemos el compromiso de ir a explicarle a la gente, que en mi caso paga mi salario, de llegar de regreso, bueno, ¿y qué es lo que han hecho al final de cuentas? Porque seguimos un poco, en mi opinión personal, hablando mucho de cerrar la brecha digital, y yo creo que es fundamental incluir a todos los sectores de la sociedad en esta discusión. Y finalmente, el tema de la innovación y tal. Información, toda la que quieran, hay, pero esa información no tiene mucho sentido a menos de que se transforme en conocimiento y ese conocimiento se transforme en innovación. Y la innovación es de carácter cultural, es de carácter tecnológico y de organización social. Y en ese sentido, otra vez, y sin pretender ser muy reiterativo, es sumamente importante vincular a esos actores, la sociedad civil, la academia, la gente joven, el gobierno, las pymes, las microempresas y las grandes corporaciones. Finalmente, me permitiría preguntarles, ¿cuánta gente hay aquí de la sociedad civil, o de pymes, o de microempresas? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pues está en sus manos seguir alentando a sus colegas para que participen en este tipo de ejercicios. Y obviamente voy a tener mucho gusto en conversar con ustedes cuando se termine este evento. Les agradezco mucho por su tiempo y su atención. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Santiago, muy amable. Continuamos y le vamos a pedir al amigo Jorge Torres de Contelca, subsecretario de Contelca, para que nos cuente su experiencia en Centroamérica con este tema de la conectividad. Adelante, Jorge. Recuerden preparar sus preguntas para el final de las presentaciones, hacer la ronda de preguntas. Gracias.
Okay, muchas gracias. Agradecido por estar acá y las invitaciones que han girado, tanto a Indotel como a la UIT, para poder exponerles en un corto tiempo lo que estamos haciendo nosotros en la región de Centroamérica. Básicamente les voy a dar un pequeño vistazo a lo que estamos haciendo, cuántos trabajos hemos desarrollado y cómo lo venimos desarrollando y bajo qué perspectiva y cuál es nuestra visión para dónde queremos llegar. Okay. Entre los temas que pretendo abarcar en el día de hoy, así rápidamente, están resultados que hemos obtenido muy recientemente de una consultoría que hemos desarrollado este año junto con el apoyo del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. Esta consultoría tenía por objetivo conocer el mercado, plantear las necesidades de backbone, de backhaul y de acceso que tenía la región centroamericana, y posteriormente hacer recomendaciones técnicas y regulatorias sobre las necesidades de los países de Centroamérica fundamentalmente. Luego les voy a hablar un poco sobre lo que es la autopista mesoamericana de la información, que es nuestro proyecto insignia, sobre el cual hemos venido trabajando ya 10 años y cual finalmente está terminado y listo para entrar en operación. Y pues los invitamos, en enero será la inauguración oficial en El Salvador sobre este proyecto. Y un poco hacer resumen, Redca, que es la empresa que va a estar operando esta red, qué es las capacidades que tiene hoy y qué es su proyección a futuro, y luego un poco de beneficios que esto nos trae a la región. Básicamente la consultoría contenía los 3 temas, como ya les decía, un poco de backbone, backhaul y acceso. Adicionalmente, producto de esto, se desprendieron 2 otros proyectos que fuimos desarrollando paralelamente, el cual no se toca en la presentación y no quiero pasarlos por alto. Uno es los planes nacionales de banda ancha. Hemos trabajado con el apoyo de Panamá para desarrollar planes nacionales de banda ancha. Le hemos levantado mapas de cobertura de banda ancha a nivel regional. Están disponibles. La plataforma, su valor que tiene, más que lo que se puede ver, porque es dinámico toda la información, está en que la plataforma también es dinámica y puede ser actualizada con la información que uno la puede ir alimentando. Esta plataforma reside en los servidores del BID y está para uso de todos los países de la región. El siguiente proyecto es el proyecto que se inauguró hoy en el mes de junio y es el Centro de Estudios Avanzados para la Banda Ancha. El centro está siendo financiado por el Banco Interamericano, el Gobierno de Corea y la República de Nicaragua. Este centro tiene por finalidad poder capacitar a todos los funcionarios, personas que están en el tema de tecnología de la banda ancha en las distintas áreas. Y su función principal es educar a través de plataformas virtuales. Se ha contratado, digo hemos porque yo estoy involucrado en el tema, pero hemos contratado la plataforma con Telefónica Learning Services para poder llevar la capacitación a todas las personas en una forma dinámica y muy avanzada. Recientemente tuvimos un evento en Nicaragua y uno de los grandes temas que estamos discutiendo hoy en día es el tema si podemos llegar a ser unos incubadores tecnológicos dentro del centro avanzado, pero es algo que está en avance. Un poco de la información de los resultados. Estos resultados no están disponibles, todavía no ha sido terminado. Si los ven es porque hemos trabajado nosotros en ellos y por eso los tenemos disponibles. Si ustedes pueden ver, hicimos 2 escenarios en todo el análisis, un escenario pesimista y un escenario optimista del consumo de tráfico de Internet que tienen los países de la región. Y con ese consumo se puede ver acá al final que en el escenario pesimista estaríamos consumiendo alrededor de 4.5 gigabits por segundo en la región dentro de los próximos 5 años y en el escenario optimista estaríamos hablando de 32 gigas. ¿Cuál era la visión de esto? Sustentar lo que era el backbone de la región para decir cuánto capacidad debería tener Redca a futuro sobre la infraestructura terrestre de fibra óptica que ya está instalada. El otro tema importante que analizamos fue el tema de la distribución del tráfico que se estaba moviendo en la región, del lado hacia afuera. Hemos logrado, en cierta manera, los datos no son, digamos, he querido sintetizarlos, pero tenemos aproximadamente un 60% del tráfico que se genera en los países es tráfico que va hacia el Internet, un 30% es tráfico que se genera localmente y un 10% es tráfico que sale hacia otros operadores o otros países de la región. Ese, digamos, en términos generales, es esto lo que se estaba planteando. Esto nos sirvió para defender una tesis de la creación y la necesidad de poder contar con los IXP en cada uno de los países y contar con un IXP regional, porque tendríamos un ahorro significativo en el tráfico que estaríamos consumiendo hacia el lado, digamos, húmedo hoy por hoy, o si logramos conectar toda la región hacia el lado terrestre y conectar con los NAP en Estados Unidos. Un poco rápidamente está el tráfico de los países, cómo se está distribuyendo hoy en día el tráfico total. He querido poner lo que es el tráfico total de banda ancha que hemos logrado medir para telefonía, para banda ancha fija, banda ancha móvil y empresarial e institucional, con la visión más de mostrar que la banda ancha fija no está moviéndose o no está creciendo sustancialmente. La banda ancha móvil, sin embargo, si ustedes lo miran de ahí, tiene un crecimiento exponencial, o sea, está aumentando tremendamente. ¿Por qué nos sirvió esto? Porque una de las teorías que hemos usado es impulsar más en el lado móvil, y la migración a 4G esperamos que nos ayude para poder llevar mayor cantidad de ancho de banda en aquellos lugares remotos. Este es el tráfico institucional, igual lo pueden ver que está creciendo, no exponencialmente, es más lineal, pero tiene un crecimiento contrario a la banda ancha fija. El tráfico total se ve influenciado básicamente por el tráfico móvil de banda ancha. Esta es la topología propuesta que nosotros analizamos usando puntos de intercambio de Internet en cada país, y en cada país con los distintos operadores que se tenían, cada jugador. Importante poder con ellos ver cómo podemos llegar a concientizarlos para que ellos aumenten su penetración de banda ancha, y en aquellos lugares que no sea posible poder hacer proyectos conjuntos como se están haciendo en algunos países de la región. Poco la topología que se piensa hacer, la topología lógica de la red, es una red altamente protegida, aun cuando está colapsada dentro de un mismo cable de fibra terrestre, pero esperamos poder tener distintas rutas de protección para garantizar la continuidad de los servicios a los operadores. En el tema de la autopista mesoamericana de la información, el tema contenía básicamente 4 grandes temas, 3 en infraestructura y 1 en regulación. La red troncal de fibra óptica es el proyecto insignia con el cual nosotros arrancamos, y el cual como resultado dio la opinión para poder crear una red de transporte a nivel de Centroamérica que fuera un carrier a nivel de IP y con redes y con IXP, una red de IXP distribuidas. Básicamente, la red troncal de fibra óptica está construida sobre la red eléctrica del proyecto CIEPAC, que es un cable OPGW, que tiene 1.800 kilómetros de longitud, todo el cable, y tiene una combinación de fibras G652, G655. Esta, en principio, la idea es usar multiplexación de longitud de onda usando DWDM. Inicialmente se arrancó con 2.5 giga en SDH y hoy está migrándose la red a ir a 10 giga con MPLS. Entonces, esa es la idea que se tiene. Son 6 empresas socias, una por cada país, y 3 empresas extranjeras las que están proyectadas y desarrollando el proyecto. 4 de ellas ya están en el sector telecomunicaciones, las otras no. Y tenemos presencia en todos los países de Centroamérica. Con los modelos de negocio que analizamos, distintos modelos, distintas proyecciones que se podían analizar en su momento para llegar a determinar cuál es el modelo más conveniente para la región. Básicamente se está usando el modelo de servicios de banda ancha a los usuarios, básicamente, bajo las ofertas de valor, de transparencia, servicios especializados, neutralidad de red, etcétera. Algunas consideraciones importantes que en su momento nosotros hicimos, de tamaños, determinación de competencias, etcétera, fueron de los elementos que nos han venido llevando para determinar lo que queríamos encontrar, y con esta consultoría final hemos hallado. Un poco de REDCA, Para ir así rápido, Redca su propuesta de valor está basada en la neutralidad, precios competitivos, alta disponibilidad y soluciones de extremo a extremo. Quiero tomar un poco y decir acá que uno de los grandes beneficios que tenemos es que dentro del acuerdo general que tenemos con la empresa Redca existe un ancho de banda que va a ser a ser usado por los gobiernos de la región. Entonces, en este sentido, tenemos la disponibilidad tanto para educación, para salud, para economía, etcétera, y para unir todos los IXP de la región. Y queremos, pues, impulsar ese tema a través de la integración. Poco para que conozcan la red, así rápidamente, es una red que da la vuelta, es una red terrestre. Los servicios que está por ofrecer, lo que está en negro es lo que se está ofreciendo, lo que está en azul es lo proyectado. Los beneficios que va a traer a la región, la integración, reducción de la brecha digital, reducción de tarifas, alta calidad de servicio, etcétera. Con esto, pues, les agradezco su tiempo y espero, si tienen alguna pregunta, pues con gusto se las puedo contestar. Gracias.
Gracias, el aplauso a Jorge. Muy amable, Jorge. Gracias. Rapidito, le vamos a pedir a Anjana Samuels de Canto que nos cuente un poco del Broadband Infrastructure Inventory del Caribe.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my distinct pleasure to be here from Kingston, Jamaica. I thank Indotel and the ITU for the warm invitation extended to CANTO, which is the Caribbean Association of National Telecommunications Organizations, to present to you on what is happening with the BPAC project, which is the Broadband Infrastructure Inventory and Public Awareness in the Caribbean project. I want to tell you what is happening with the project, what its objective is, and how we seek to make a difference in the question of connectivity for the countries affected. Okay, so BPAC is a spin-off of the Connect the Caribbean initiative, which is subsumed within Connect Americas, an initiative of the International Telecommunications Union. And the project had its genesis in November 2011 from ministers of the beneficiary countries, which are Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Suriname, Belize, Guyana, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, coming together with the IDB and CANTO to say that we need to have an inventory of the status of broadband in our countries. We know we're not where we need to be, but we don't have an accurate idea of the various areas in our countries that have gaps that need to be addressed. And so everyone came together to decide that this is something that we needed to have happen, and the project commenced at the end of March 2013 and should go for at least 24 months, but at this juncture it's obvious that we may extend beyond that point. What are the objectives of this project? We'll all agree, and we've been discussing it, that even if penetration is higher than we might expect it to be, or is higher than we might think in certain regions, this doesn't mean that everyone has access. And so we want to know that regardless of where you exist and your social strata, you have access, it's affordable, and you can make the best of what broadband has to offer. And so this is a major objective of the broadband project. And then, of course, through the inventory that we will conduct, we want to better understand the status of broadband and develop regional policies that will allow us to exploit the advances that we have made, but also fill the gaps that currently still exist. The structure of the project has the IDB as our team leader in DC, and there is a country office in Port of Spain. CANTO is headquartered in Port of Spain, and I work intimately with them from Jamaica to administer the project as the regional coordinator, working intimately with a steering and technical committee. Okay, the steering committee is comprised of ministers or their representatives from the 8 beneficiary countries, And I'm very excited about this because it means the decision makers always have their fingers on the pulse of what is happening in the project and what needs to happen. This presentation will be posted online, so I won't go into the specific bulleted details, but essentially they give an overhead analysis to ensure that the project fits the needs of their countries. As you can imagine, with a Pan-Caribbean project with beneficiaries such as the Dominican Republic and Haiti, the needs really differ, and so the steering committee ensures that that which has already happened is not repeated, and previous projects are included in terms of what they have already shown us. The technical committee gets more into the nitty-gritty of things. The consultants work with technical committee members. Again, we have one per country to liaise with your statistical office, to liaise with the Indotels of the world, etc., to provide the connectivity information we need to do our inventory and to also affect public awareness. Because it's well and good to know what your gaps are, but do the people know what they can do once the gaps are filled to increase their productivity and their socioeconomic development? So our technical committee is our champion on the ground, shall we say, to ensure the connectivity happens and the project's objectives are accomplished. What are the four main sub-projects within the BPAC project? We have the infrastructure map I spoke about initially, and my colleague from the IDB has already spoken about the Digilac project. This is Senora Lorena Cano, and that plays a major role in what we are doing in this first component. The second one is looking at a review of the legal and regulatory framework within the 8 beneficiary countries. And then, as I spoke about, informing people of what they can do with the initiative, we move into the third component, which is ICT awareness and capacity building. And then it all comes together with the building of a public policy, which is regional for all of the 8 beneficiary countries. Again, the overarching objective being laying the groundwork for increased penetration and usage of all the member countries. The first component began in January of this year, and its major goal is both the detailed broadband infrastructure maps and the identification of country-specific socio-demographic variables which can be tied to that map. So if you are an investor and you're looking at this map after it's completed, you may want to know how ICTs or broadband's penetration links to crime rates, links to health statuses throughout the country, etc. This all-inclusive map will allow you to connect the dots between broadband and the different industries it touches, and we know that that can be quite expansive. And as my colleague got into further details with, this has already happened for a number of Latin American countries, and the Caribbean countries will be added to the database to make it more all-encompassing. The database that I'm speaking about is the dynamic visual and intuitive platform, which has a number of goals. It's going to be that reference tool in the region for Latin America and the Caribbean for consultation and analysis, for understanding how the different socioeconomic variables linked to the penetration scene, and then also for an ability to present comparative map variables. And I know that Ms. Cano got into it briefly, but I'm very intrigued by how interactive the map is and how you can, in a one-snap view, both understand what's happening throughout the entire region, but also on a country-by-country basis. And of course, the Digilac platform has already been spoken about, so I don't need to get into that. The second of the 4 components, looking at a review of the regulatory and institutional frameworks. Work began just last week, and the objectives look at understanding the regulatory, infrastructural, and the institutional framework within each country. Thank you. The third component looks at the ICT awareness and capacity building, which I've also spoken about, and that began last week also. And then the fourth component will depend on the completion of the infrastructural maps, and it will look at, in the first instance, developing national broadband policies and then moving from that to create a regional policy. And we want to ensure that this is not just another report that sits on a shelf, and that's why we want the maps to have been already completed before we do that. Some completed work is highlighted here. I've spoken about it a lot when I spoke about what has happened in each objective, so I won't go into the details of each. You can reference it. The expected results will be the maps inclusion within the Latin American map, the public policy decisions and regional policy recommendations being put together, and then of course across public and private sectors through the capacity building initiatives, people having a greater understanding of how they can make best use of broadband within the region. And subsequent to that, we have lessons learned that when you're dealing with a Pan-Caribbean project, you must be sensitive to the needs of each country. So we've actually changed the scope of work on a country-by-country basis where relevant, so the results will be valid. And there also have been a number, as you can imagine, of bureaucratic issues when trying to bring 8 countries together. But once you remain committed and listen, and it's mutually respected, the objectives can be accomplished. So that's a quick review of the broadband project, and I'm here to answer further questions as they may be needed. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Just on time. Very good, Anjana. Continuamos con la última presentación de esta sección. El señor Salvador Ricord, consultor independiente, que nos va a conversar de la experiencia de conectividad en República Dominicana. Adelante, Salvador.
Bien, buenas tardes o mañana. Buenas tardes ya. Ok. Quiero dar las gracias al Indotel y a la UIT por haberme invitado, y quisiera darles también la bienvenida a los delegados que vienen de los países del Caribe cercano, nuestros hermanos del Caribe. Y quería invitarlos rápidamente, porque pensé que ustedes no conocían a la República Dominicana, a pasar rápidamente por República Dominicana en algunas cifras que tengo aquí. Por cierto, me dijeron que la presentación mía se la dejara a mitad de precio, por eso 7 minutos me han dado. De forma tal que... ¿dónde está? ¿Me indica? Bien, ustedes saben que nosotros compartimos la isla de la Española con nuestros hermanos haitianos. Nosotros tenemos 48.7 mil kilómetros cuadrados, somos 9.4 millones de habitantes para una densidad poblacional de 195 habitantes por kilómetro cuadrado, que viene siendo más o menos 2/3 de la de Haití y 2 veces la de Cuba. Nuestra edad mediana es de 28.7 años, significa que la mitad de nuestra población tiene menos de 28.7 años y la otra mitad por encima. Nuestra población está dividida fundamentalmente hombres iguales, la misma cantidad de hombres que mujeres, y el 3/4 de la población vive en las ciudades. Nuestra tasa de crecimiento poblacional es de 1.21% anual. Tenemos como distribución política 31 provincias, 154 municipios y 228 distritos municipales y contando. Nuestra economía es de 60.7 mil millones de dólares, ese fue el PIB del 2013, y a paridad de poder adquisitivo, esto es más o menos similar al de Puerto Rico, un 15% menor que el de Cuba y como 8 veces el de Haití. En el año 1998 tuvimos una ley y cambiamos la que teníamos en las telecomunicaciones, y a partir de ahí conseguimos 18 concesionarios de servicios de telefonía, unas 90 concesiones de empresas de cable TV, creo que son un poquito más, pero esas son las que están activas, distribuidas como la verdolaga en los campos de la República Dominicana. Tenemos 20 operadores de servicios de data de Internet, 5 cables submarinos llegan, hemos logrado con el desarrollo del sector que se invierta y se llegue a la República Dominicana estas empresas. Y los indicadores de telefonía nos muestran que hemos tenido desde 2004 a 2013 un impresionante crecimiento, tanto fundamentalmente en telefonía móvil. La telefonía fija se ha mantenido más o menos al mismo nivel. En cuanto a los indicadores de Internet fijo y móvil, acabo de corregirlos con el documento que publicó la UIT y lo hice recién anoche porque lo encontré el documento. Por eso los porcentajes no se corresponden con el tamaño de las barras, sobre todo en las teledensidades. Fíjense que para el 2013 tenemos 45.9, que es bastante, ¿no? Hemos crecido definitivamente de forma impresionante, pienso yo. No obstante, cuando vemos tanto el NRI y el ITC, que hablábamos hace un rato, uno de los exponentes estuvo refiriendo a eso, pues vemos que realmente en cuanto al ITC no hemos mejorado mucho en los últimos 8 años. Tenemos la curva, como ustedes ven, tiene una pendiente casi plana. Y nuestra meta está planteada para el año 2020, sobre todo en el NRI, a 4.3 y hoy día nos encontramos en 3.69. Si seguimos haciendo lo que hemos venido haciendo hasta ahora, no lo vamos a lograr. De forma que tenemos que radicalmente adoptar alguna estrategia diferente para poder lograrlo. En cuanto al IDI, tenemos hoy día 4.06, que es lo que tenía el promedio mundial en el año 2011, de forma que estamos un poquitito retrasados en base a esa medición. Si notan en esta gráfica, que es una gráfica que la elaboró un ingeniero amigo, vemos que República Dominicana, aún teniendo un PIB per cápita similar al que tienen países del área, muestra en la curva que hay un gap entre el crecimiento en el índice de acceso, de forma tal que nosotros con el PIB que tenemos deberíamos tener un índice de acceso mayor, lo cual viene a confirmar una vez más que tenemos un reto por delante. En el año 2012 se elaboró una estrategia nacional de desarrollo que nos plantea que las TIC deben ser una política transversal a los fines de poder conseguir fundamentalmente llegar al acceso universal a las TIC, implementar el gobierno electrónico, llegar al tema de la ciudadanía digital con muchos contenidos locales como hablaba el amigo aquí. Ya, se me ahorró, se me acabó, 2 minutos. Bueno, aquí como ustedes pueden ver, en el área, las áreas amarillas representan las áreas que no están servidas en este momento, no hay la forma de poder que un dominicano se pueda comunicar si vive en esa área. Esas áreas coinciden naturalmente con terrenos que son de las montañas y donde hay muy baja población. Si ustedes notan, hay una serie de puntitos que son los radiobases que se utilizan para la telefonía celular y al mismo tiempo está tendido todo el cableado de fibra que hay en este momento en República Dominicana y al mismo tiempo interconectado con los cables submarinos. Fue una gráfica que nos mostró ya el señor Puig y fue una iniciativa del Indotel al año 2012 en la que se proponía cerrar esas zonas que acabo de escuchar hace 3 días que el presidente del Indotel dijo que el Indotel se había propuesto abordar el 32% de las zonas oscuras, lo cual celebramos y aplaudimos. al igual que su declaración de que la banda ancha, la implementación de la banda ancha es un tema político. Si no se asume así, no vamos a llegar a los índices que necesitamos y lo que están planteados en la Estrategia Nacional de Desarrollo. En el caso de la red de la empresa de transmisión eléctrica dominicana, que la están construyendo, poco a poco, a través del cable de guarda de las redes de transmisión de potencia, ellos se plantearon una serie de anillos, algunos de los cuales son planos y van a variar porque en la medida en que se vayan implementando las sucesivas etapas, estos anillos van a variar. Por último, esto es lo que nosotros entendemos que va a ser la red de TED. Como ustedes ven, ya esto no es una idea aérea, sino que es un diseño acabado, formal, y esperamos que eso va a estar en licitación prontamente. Muchas gracias.
A ti, Salvador. Gracias.
Lo hice rápido, ¿no? ¿Verdad?
Sí, sí, muy amable, muy amable. Aprovecho para, además de darle las gracias a los panelistas por sus excelentes presentaciones, informarles que la sección de preguntas y respuestas por temas de tiempo y con el favor de ustedes y de los panelistas, la vamos a dejar para después de almuerzo, eso de las 3 de la tarde. Estamos aquí otra vez. Gracias y que tengan buen provecho.